Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Chat. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we're doing a review of TNA Slammiversary from 2024. You guys might have seen my predictions show, and I got a few things right. But now I'm going to give my thoughts on the show as I just saw it. And yeah, overall, I think it was a good show. It was solid for sure. And it was great to see them have such a huge crowd, just this massive crowd, on fire. It was a hot, sold-out crowd, and that was great to see for TNA. And I'm happy for them when it comes to that, of course. And from a wrestling standpoint, I think the show was really good. The matches were great. Yeah, and TNA always delivers. When it comes to the matches, you're always going to see a great match on the show, and they always do that. They always deliver when it comes to the wrestling. You know you're not going to be disappointed. But as far as, like, big surprises go, we didn't really get a whole lot of that. I know on the social media, Jordan Grace was on X talking about there's going to be huge surprises. You guys are going to be shocked. And, you know, they didn't quite deliver when it came to the surprises, and we didn't get any huge returns, except for Alex Hammerstone came back, which was cool. On the Countdown show, he ended up having a match with Eric Young. I actually would have saved that for the main show, and maybe take out Matt Hardy versus JDC. I don't think that was really worthy of being on the main show, so I would have switched those. I would have had Eric Young versus Hammerstone as the opening match. And there were a couple matches they probably could have scrapped altogether. I think overall it was maybe too long, too many matches. I think if you cut out one or two matches, the show probably would have flowed a little better. And, okay, so my highlights of the show were definitely Jordan Grace versus Ash by Elegance, which was surprisingly a really good match. Because up to that point, I feel like Ash by Elegance hadn't quite established herself as good as I had hoped. And she didn't really have any great matches until this point. But she really stepped it up and brought it to Jordan Grace. She really gave it her all 100%, and it was great. It was great to see that. They really had a great competitive physical match, and yes, A+ all the way. I thought it was great, but I knew that Jordan Grace was going to come out on top because she is just an unstoppable juggernaut, and she has really lived up to that moniker, and it just seems like at this point, I don't think anybody in TNA can beat her. So they have to bring in people from the outside, like from WWE or NXT or whatever. I think that's the only way she's going to lose at this point. Unless there's some serious shenanigans going on. And, yeah, that part, I did predict that Rosemary was going to get involved, and I did predict that Jordan Grace would be on top. So I got a few things right in my prediction video. Not everything, though. But I think that was one of the best matches, and I think that the tag team match with the System versus ABC was really good and really exciting. And, yeah, I'm happy for ABC. I would have preferred the System to stay on top, but I knew they were going to lose, but I just didn't know that it was going to be ABC. I thought it was going to be the Hardys coming in and winning that. But, yeah, we saw in this past week's Impact that that wasn't going to happen. But still, it was a great match. And, you know, the System, those guys, Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers, really can work. And you got them against these great young talent like you know, Ace Austin and Chris Bay are just they are a fantastic tag team. There's no question about it. And props to them. So new tag team champions, the ABC. So that was one of my favorite matches. And you had the X Division Championship match with Mustafa Ali versus Mike Bailey, and I called that one too. I knew in front of the big hot Montreal crowd They were not going to go against the grain and have Mustafa Ali win. So, but it was a great match, and they ended up bringing out Earl Hebner, you know, kind of alluding to the Montreal screw job with Bret Hart back in the day. But thank God they didn't go that route. They didn't have Earl Hebner screw over Mike Bailey. Mike Bailey did come out and top, and he did win the X Division Championship. So congrats to Mike Bailey, new X Division Champion. Let's see, we also had, on the Countdown show, you had the Knockouts Tag Team Championship match, which, you know, the Militia did come out on top, so that was the only part of the system that did not lose their championship tonight. So there were a lot of championship changes tonight, including you had the Digital Media Championship, the AJ Francis versus PCO, and that was a lot of fun. I'd say that was probably the most fun match of the night, with a lot of people getting involved. You know, you had Steph DeLander coming in, you know, and proposing to PCO, and she kind of botched that. She dropped the ring on the ground. It was funny. But I love the intro of PCO, the whole Universal Frankenstein thing. They brought him up down from the rafters like he was being electrocuted, and they put him in a coffin, and they juiced him up, and yeah, he came back to life, and that was really cool, really well done. And of course, he ended up winning, and now he's the new Digital Media Champion and International Heavyweight Champion. So he's got 2 titles. So that's pretty good. I don't know what they're going to do with him because he doesn't really talk much. All he does is be like, AJ Francis. He just yells at the top as long as he doesn't really talk. But he's certainly over with the crowd, and obviously he's from Canada, so, you know, he's in Montreal, so you know he's going to win. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I do have a few criticisms of the show. I have to be honest and open with you guys as a fan of TNA. These production value issues have to stop. I mean, this is one of the biggest shows of the year, and it is every year. You always know Slammiversary is going to be a big, huge show. And they had this huge sold-out crowd, over 4,000 people. You could see it was massive, but they're in the dark. You couldn't see them. That is just a big no-no to me. I feel like you gotta see that crowd. This is one of the biggest crowds they've had in 10 years. And you can't see them. They're in the dark. The production, the lighting is just bad. I think that's a huge negative of the show. That was my biggest frustration of the night, was seeing there was some audio issues too with the commentary team, and you couldn't hear the people's intros, you couldn't hear the music, you know. Man, it's just so frustrating sometimes. Everybody wants to see this company do well, and everybody wants to see them grow because they are getting hot. There's a lot of positive buzz with TNA working with NXT and WWE. So what the hell? You gotta step it up, especially on a big, huge pay-per-view like this. That's when you gotta step things up and upgrade the production value. But no, it felt like a regular TNA Impact show. It didn't feel any better with the production values. Actually, it's probably worse, because on an average TNA show, the production value is, yeah, not great, but at least the audio is decent. But here, the audio is bad, the lighting was bad, the color scheme and overall look of the pay-per-view was not great. It's very bland, you know, just that black and gold. There's no color scheme, you know. So that's my biggest negative on the show. And that the surprises that kind of Jordan Grace promised did not really come to fruition. I will say in the main event, there was a few shockers. I think the main event was awesome. So big, huge props to the main event. It lived up to the hype and more than that. It absolutely delivered the goods. I did not in a million years see Josh Alexander turning heel, and that was intense. That was awesome. Didn't see that coming, and that was awesome. So very much looking forward to what they're going to be doing with Josh Alexander and that heel turn. They probably should have went all the way with it and have him actually win the world championship, but out of nowhere they had Nick Nemeth win the world championship. So you knew that probably at some point Nick Nemeth was going to be world champion, but I wasn't sure when, because he had kind of lost some steam, after being out for a little while and, working a lot of indie shows and being over in Japan and stuff. He hadn't quite been as dedicated to TNA as he probably should have been. So I wasn't sure if they were going to drop the hammer and have him win the championship, but he did. I honestly thought that Joe Hendry was going to win because he's been so hot, he's been so on fire with the crowd and with the people, and his big showing in NXT and being so over with the crowd in NXT and WWE. Seeing Joe Hendry signs even at some of the main roster events, you seeing Joe Hendry signs and stuff. People love Joe Hendry, so I thought they were going to just pull the trigger and have Joe Hendry be the champion, but at least he did get a great showing, and he was the one to pin Moose, which I said specifically in my prediction video that he was not going to pin Moose, but he was the one to pin Moose halfway through the match. So that was another big shocker, is the fact that Moose got pinned that early in the match. I was like, damn. So it's like, wow, now there's going to be a new world champion, and who's it going to be, I almost thought at one point that Kazarian was going to win, because he kind of came out of nowhere against Nick Nemeth, and it was like, oh, snap, they're going to... Because I would love to see Kazarian win the championship, and I think he deserves it at this point. I mean, he calls himself the king of TNA, so to have him actually be the champion and be this legendary TNA guy, because Kazarian can still go. He's really good, he's the best he's ever been right now. He can really go in the ring, and he's got the character and the presence, and he's a great heel. I think he would be an excellent world champion, honestly, but he had a great showing, and I don't think they did too much with Macklin as they probably could have, but yeah, overall I think the main event really delivered, and congrats to Nick Nemeth becoming the new TNA World Champion. I'm interested to see what they do with him going forward. He's going to be the huge baby face of the company now, maybe even more so than Joe Hendry, but I just thought they were going to go with Joe Hendry, being that he's so over with the crowd. But yeah, overall it was a good show, solid, and great matches. All the wrestlers, all the talent did an excellent job, and they really brought their A game. So from that aspect, it was not disappointing. But from a production standpoint, to me, it was a little bit disappointing at times, because it's just frustrating that they can't get their act together when it comes to the production. When you got so much positive buzz going for the company, you got to do better, people. So I'm telling you right now, TNA, get your act together. If you ever want to get bigger and to grow, you have to fix these production issues. You gotta look a little more like NXT. Start watching NXT. You're working with NXT on a tight basis now. Learn something from them. Look at the show. It's beautiful, bright colored. You see every single person in that crowd beautifully. You got excellent production value and audio on the NXT show. So learn something from it. Come on. Step it up, people. But anyway, overall, I think it was a good show, and it was a lot of fun. It was just great to see TNA getting that big, huge, hot crowd after, you know, biggest show in 10 years, you know, so that was great to see, but it's like, come on, light it up, let me see these people. There was one part where Mike Santana was doing his thing. He loves to walk through the crowd and get everyone hyped, and yeah, you couldn't even see him barely. It's like, come on. But yeah, it's just frustrating sometimes when you see that, but still a huge fan, and it was a solid show. I just wish it was a little bit better than it actually was, you know. There were some great moments. Ash by Elegance versus Jordan Grace really delivered. They killed it. The main event was awesome. So overall, it was a good show, but it just could have been a little bit better. It could have been a couple big surprises, but there really weren't any big, huge surprises. But it was solid. So that's it, guys. Thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Pro Wrestling Chat. Tune in and lock up. Peace out, guys.